Welcome to another edition of Talkin' Business. I'm Joey Trombley, and on the camera is Calvin Castine himself, the founding father of Hometown Cable. This is our first official Talkin' Business for the year 2013. We took a couple weeks off toward the holidays because the way the holidays fell right on the days that we normally do Talkin' Business. And then January showed up and people were sick and they were busy with their businesses and we just couldn't get together. So it's our first show will be with Curtis Bingo, and he is the head one here at the M.B. Clark Funeral Home. And this is going to be an exciting show. I mean, I've always been impressed with the M.B. Clark Funeral Home here, and it's just a very stately-looking building here in Champlain up on the hill. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the home of Pliny Moore, the founder of Champlain.
Correct.
And he lived here, and I think the Clark family ended up buying this from him.
Yep, the Clark family ended up buying the business in about, it was the 1920s sometime, I believe, the mid-1920s. There was a fire here in 1912.
Okay.
It was rebuilt in 1914, and the Clarks bought it not too long after that, about a decade.
Okay. Now, the Clark family, that's not just here. They also own a funeral home in Rouse's Point.
Yes.
And I think in Lake Placid.
In Lake Placid as well, which is dating back to that time. Willis Parsons and Matthew Clark were in business together, and what they did is Willis ran the West Shazy and Champlain branches, which were open at the time,
Okay.
and Matthew went to Lake Placid to open up there.
And then Oral Parsons was in Champlain for the longest time.
Yes.
And his relation to Willis?
Would be Willis's son.
Willis's son, okay.
Yes.
So, and Oral was here for how many years?
Over 50.
Over 50 years. Oral Parsons, as everybody knows, that's here from the Northern Tier watching this show, was a staple here in Champlain.
Yes.
And of course, then from Oral, it passed on over to whom?
Corey Ross ran it for the better part of a decade, I think a little bit more, all through the early 2000s, from 2000 till about 2009, 2010.
So it was from Oral Parsons to Corey Ross, and then now to yourself?
Now I am running the Champlain and Rouse's Point branches for the Clark family. The Clark family is still in Lake Placid. Reginald Clark, Matthew's son, has been at the realm probably about as long as Oral has, maybe.
Now, does Reginald have any children showing interest in the business also?
Yes, his son Mark, who is going to be obviously taking over in Lake Placid, who is currently taking over in Lake Placid and working side by side with Reg.
Okay. Now, do the Clark family make it up here to the Northern Tier often to look over the facilities?
They make it up here often. I guess you'd have to define often, but they do make it up a few times a year, check on things, and we speak on at least a weekly basis, if not more.
I know you'll be giving us a tour of the facility here. And,
yes.
But, you know, a question I like to ask, like yourself, what drew your interest into becoming a mortician?
I would have to say the first and foremost reason was because it's a service industry. It serves people. I wanted to do something that did serve people, but not quite sure what. So I looked into funeral homes, being a funeral director, took an interest in the program, completed it at SUNY Canton, graduated in 2001.
Okay.
Actually worked here from 2001 to 2003 with Corey Ross, and did my residency, and then went to work at Brown Funeral Home and actually moved to the Capital Region for a while before moving back up here.
No kidding. So actually SUNY Canton offered
mortuary science.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Now, from when you got done Canton, did you have to go to another school?
Nope. We had a year residency we had to do someplace. I did mine at M.B. Clark.
Okay.
And during that residency, you have to complete so many of your skills, report them to New York State, and then apply for your state licensing exam.
So you've been doing this for better than a decade yourself, then?
Correct.
Okay. And then you went to the Capital District. Now, what brought you back here to Champlain?
Family. I am from Plattsburgh. Graduated from Plattsburgh High School in 1999, and when considering the relocation, it was more or less for family reasons.
Sure.
My parents lived up here at the time. It's now great to be up here for my dad and helping him out with several things. So
you've been here for how long? A couple of years now?
It would be September of 2010.
2010, oh, so 3 years.
Yep, it'll
Or
be
gonna
3 years this
coming up.
fall, yep.
Well, time flies. Huh?
Yes, it does.
Wow. Now, I know that over the years, and it's probably been a while now, but they did a major renovation in here.
Major. What we did is we wanted to restore the old character of the building. So what we did is there had been many patch jobs done over several decades, and so what we did is we basically gutted the building, re-sheetrocked everything that you see, new light fixtures, new wiring, new flooring.
And you even did an addition off to the side, which we'll see where your office is.
Correct.
And the showroom.
Correct.
Okay.
And our preparation facilities and things like that. The front room has been opened up, and really, we're just trying to restore the integrity of the building and show it off as it would have been back.
And not only is this a funeral parlor, but you also live at the residence here.
Yep, I live upstairs, and so that I'm pretty much hands-on right here all the time, and it's somebody to keep a watch over the property.
So you have the residence upstairs, and then you have the funeral home down below.
Correct.
So there's no other apartments or anything like
Nope,
that?
there's no other apartments in this
Okay.
building. I'm the only resident here, and the downstairs is dedicated totally to the funeral home. My entire living quarters is upstairs.
And you know, as the years have gone by, I mean, when I was younger, it's become more commonplace for people to accept the reality of what our fate is going to be, and they
Absolutely.
pre-plan.
Yeah, and they pre-plan, absolutely.
And do you see more of that now?
We're seeing quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
Especially in the communities like Champlain and Rouse's Point, where you do have a lot of older generations, not a lot of new people moving in. You're seeing a lot of people in these communities start to plan for their future.
I know we did that for my mom and dad, and so just people know that you prepay and it goes into like a savings account,
Yep.
and then when that day comes, whether it's 3 years, 10 or 15 years, the money has accumulated enough. At least in our case, it was enough to cover the expenses.
Correct. Most cases, the interest accrued is enough to cover the expenses. A lot of times, the over expenses are so minimal that a funeral home would choose to especially consider that and possibly,
Right.
just write it off.
So I mean, I think that's probably a good choice for people to do, because I mean, it is a very grieving, trying time in their life,
Absolutely.
and not having to think about that.
Oh, it definitely made a lot of families have come in here and said it just made our time at this time so much easier to have all this done
Yeah.
ahead of time.
And I'm sure it's got to be uncomfortable for you and with the family who's grieving to talk about the business aspect of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would assume it would be, especially when they're going through a tough time.
Mainly, I like to focus on the family, the individual who is deceased, whose life we're going to be commemorating. That's basically my main focus.
And it truly is a celebration.
It is.
It's a celebration of their life, and you guys do a
Absolutely.
wonderful job with that.
Thank you.
From experience, and then just coming here, well, as we lose community members, we come
Yeah.
pay our respects, and
Yeah.
just see the job that you guys do. Now, this is what people see when they first come in. Right now, Calvin has the main hallway here,
Correct.
and so go ahead.
Folks walk in, they sign the register book on the right. The double doors on the left lead into the chapel, and that's usually where they're able to pay their respects at the casket and go through the receiving line.
Okay. Now, Calvin, did you want to go into the chapel or the receiving room here? Okay, we'll head over there.
Okay.
And we've made it into the receiving room, the showroom, and Curtis, you were very nice about displaying for us. I know you went to your took out a casket out of your display room just to kind of show us what the setup is like.
Yep, just to show you that, on a traditional calling hours and funeral service, we would set a casket up in the front here like that, with the beer, they call it a beer, underneath,
Okay.
just kind of an aesthetic.
Yeah.
And folks would come in these double doors over here, pay their respects at the casket, and the family would form a receiving line right down here.
Okay. And I know you got a beautiful fireplace here. Now that's just strictly for show nowadays.
Strictly for show right now.
Okay. Now, does the family have ways that they can decorate? Is that pretty much left up to them?
Absolutely. We can set up photo boards. We have easels. I tend to set this table up with many picture frames, things like that. We basically, if there's anything they want to display, there's really not much in the way of limitations. We'll pretty much display anything they need to.
Okay, and then I noticed there's a TV behind Calvin, and I assume that's if you want to do a video.
Yes.
People do videos of the celebration of their life.
Correct. And we actually have a new spot for the TV in the front room, which we haven't relocated it yet, but it will be a little larger and mounted on the wall
Right.
for viewing the DVD tributes.
Okay, that's right. Now, do you guys put that together for them too?
There's some people locally that we refer that do put those together. We don't have the technology yet to do it efficiently. It can be done here, but I think it's better steered in a little more cost and time efficient manner if we direct it to somebody who does it for a
Okay,
living.
Sure, so people know that. And of course, you service everybody, so different denominations.
Absolutely.
And I would assume that you probably have to learn the different rituals and of the different churches.
Absolutely. We find it's very helpful if we meet with clergy and know our clergy in our community through all denominations and become familiar with them and become familiar with their practices within their church.
Sure, I can see that. And so now, if obviously this is your main showroom, but you do have a second showroom.
Yes.
If for some reason you have two showings going on at the same time.
Correct. In the front of the building, we've opened up the room a little bit, added a bathroom, and have another layout area that can be converted should we have two sets of calling hours going on the same day.
So my guess is you probably have a answering service. You're pretty much on call 24/7.
Correct.
I would think.
We have an answering service so that if I am out of the building,
After hours.
correct, they can contact me immediately with any message.
Okay. Now, I know there was a lot of extensive work done over on that part, and I think that a lot of it was actually added on, if I'm not mistaken, where the office and the showroom is, or for the
Correct. Many years ago, and it's come through various phases. The guest house, the original Pliny-Moore guest house, which is that side wing, was connected to the main house by the funeral home and has progressed over the years. Now it is an entryway, the entrance into the arrangement office, and the casket showroom.
So the day of a showing, people would still come through this way here.
Correct. They'd come through the main doors. There is the side door for handicap access.
Okay.
There is a ramp outside of it, and from time to time, we do use the side door.
Okay. And Calvin, if we can go over to the office and to the showroom over there, that'd be
Very
great.
good.
Well, before we go into Curtis's office, we talked about the second showroom. If you have more than one person here, and Calvin is kind of viewing in on that. And while we're talking too, we talked about plenty more, but the McClellan family
Yes.
was actually ancestors of plenty more, right?
Correct. And they were...
Was that?
Descendants, not
Well, not descendants.
They actually ended up with the property and owned the property at the time that it was purchased by the Clark family.
Okay. And I think you said something about the original plans?
Yeah, when the house burnt in 1912 and was rebuilt, I believe completed in 1914, they built an exact duplicate of this house on the original foundation. The outside wall has never been touched, never been taken down or redone. The plans were actually saved for the original house, and they built an exact duplicate. Every room, every molding, everything was the same.
Wow, you don't see that too often.
No.
That's kind of unique. Now, and they were pretty active in the community. I think Calvin mentioned the statues of Samuel D. Champlain. They were responsible for that.
Well, architect.
The architecture.
One of them was an architect.
Okay. And then they had a printing business underneath the
What he did.
what he did under the KSE, where the KSE is now.
Yep.
Okay. And you said they took care of the cemeteries?
No, they wrote a book on the cemeteries. Clyde Rabideau Sr. recently went out and redid that, but in the 30s, the McClellans went around throughout the county and cataloged every tombstone in the county.
Wow.
That's actually something I don't think I knew.
We learn a lot here on Talking Business. Now, of course, we kind of showcase that room a little bit, and if we look over here, you have two doors here, Curtis, and
Yes.
if you can kind of explain what those doors lead to.
That's our care center, and in the care center is where we bring the deceased individuals for preparation for viewing.
Okay. Do you mind opening the doors?
No, not at all. We could peek in. The room is completely sterile. It's cleaned thoroughly after every use, and it's brand new. It's extremely what I like to think. I like to think it's a completely sterile, clean, and safe environment for us to be able to care for others' loved ones.
Yeah, I was really amazed on how sterile the room is, and I mean, growing up, watching the old vampire movies and stuff, just what you pick in your mind, I just never pictured that. I always pictured somewhere in the basement, you did what you had to do, but I mean,
No, more like a doctor's office.
Yeah, this is
now.
really governed
Yeah.
by your association,
Correct.
and it has to be very, very sterile.
Absolutely, very sterile and just a nice, caring environment.
Yeah, no, very, very nice. So we have those doors there. So I guess now, yeah, you go ahead and shut that, Curtis. But we're going to head into the where your office is, and where that renovation took place.
Correct.
And we've made it into Curtis's office, and of course, this is where you meet with the families, I'm sure.
Correct. This is our arrangement office.
Now, was this a new addition here, or was it just a building, a part of the building that was here that was redone?
This is actually part of the addition, although the addition has been here for quite some time.
Okay.
It's now able to be fully utilized as it has a permanent heating system and things like that. I will bring families in here, and this is where we sit and have our conference to plan their loved one's memorial.
Sure. No, I noticed behind us we have urns, and so you're seeing that more and more common too. That it's not just normal burials; there's cremations taking place.
Cremations are definitely on the rise. I believe our industry is beginning to embrace it now and offer as many options as we possibly can for cremation.
Now, when somebody is going to be cremated, do they normally have a showing first, and do they get cremated, or do they get cremated and then the urn is out there in the showing room?
I'd say you have a definite mix of both, and the options are there to be able to do a full viewing, funeral service and everything ahead of time before cremation.
Okay.
And of course, the options are there to have cremation first and have a memorial afterwards using the urn and having that present.
And obviously, these are the conversations you have with people
Correct.
in this room.
Yes.
When the time
This
comes.
is where we plan.
Okay. Now, anything else you want to talk about this room before we go off into your showroom?
No, I think this was
Pretty much
pretty
covered
much built for the purpose that it's here for now, and it definitely serves a good purpose here.
Okay, great. So, Calvin, we'll head over into the showroom. And we've made it into the showroom, and you do have quite a variety of choices here for people.
Yeah. Obviously, our two main casket composition materials are wood and metal. They vary from species of wood to gauges and types of metal. We try and offer a good mix of both so that folks can get a good idea of what there is for options.
Okay, now, and if somebody was in here looking and just something just wasn't hitting them just right, are they able to order another casket?
Yep, we have litho catalogs with litho photos in them, kind of not a life size, but a lifelike photo
Right.
of the casket, with all their different options for interior material, outside hardware, things like that. Folks could look through there. If something is a little more suitable there, we can call the company and usually have it here the next day.
So your supplier's obviously relatively close then.
They're in Albany.
Okay.
Yep.
And as I'm talking to you, I know we're talking to like the history of the different morticians here, but
Yeah.
how did we forget Chad Stevens?
Chad,
Or Chad Dean, I'm sorry.
yeah, Chad Deans. Chad has been living in Champlain now for my gosh, the better part of 10 years or more. Originally from Malone. Chad married a local girl, Heather Blix, and him and Heather moved back to the area. Heather's a teacher with the local schools here, and Chad actually worked side by side with Corey for many years.
Right, yeah, that's I knew Chad, yeah.
Yep, and what Chad did is he took a full-time job with the state of New York, a little easier with his family,
Right.
and I believe with future retirement planning and things like that.
But he's still involved, though, right?
Very much involved. Chad comes in for several calling hours and funeral services, especially for people that he knows, and will work with me on those.
I'm sure that's a big help to you.
It's huge help to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're running, you're running two funeral homes.
Two funeral homes.
You know, I mean, obviously we're in Champlain right now, but
Yep.
you have the other one in Rouse's Point.
Yep, we are at 148 Lake Street in Rouse's Point. We bought that location. Clark's bought that, I believe, in the late 30s, possibly even. No, I'm sorry, that was the 1950s was Rouse's Point. And Reginald Clark bought that, and that was following the closure of their West Shazy location.
Okay. Now, what year did West Shazy shut down?
That was early on in the Willis and Oral Parsons days.
Okay.
I believe that there was a fire, and it just never rebuilt. Ran everything out of Champlain and eventually purchased Rouse's Point.
So I can see where it can get probably a little crazy having two funeral homes in two towns separated,
Sure.
where now you have maybe two or three going on at the same time.
Correct.
Thank God for Chad.
Yes, thank God for Chad.
That we have Chad.
Absolutely. The nice thing is the proximity between the two locations is obviously only 4 miles, so it really, it does make things a little easier than having, I know several funeral homes are spread out over 10, 20, 30 miles or more.
Right, right. Now, I mean, obviously, you know, your last name's Bingle, and a very popular name around here, and your dad is popular in this area. And why don't you tell us who your dad is?
My dad's Bill Bingle, William Bingle. He's the former Clinton County Administrator.
Right.
Who is actually, that post is now being held by Mike Zerlo, who's a local Champlain.
Well, you know, where it all ties in together is Chad lives in Michael's father's old house.
Correct.
John Zerlo's house.
Yes, he does.
So there's kind of a circle there.
Yes, there is. A lot of local ties. And yes, my dad served Clinton County for the better part of 25 years.
Wow.
And retired in 2004.
So well, almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years now.
It's hard to believe, huh?
I know. Time does fly.
It sure does. We're at the M.B. Clark Funeral Home here in Champlain, and this has been a very interesting talking business today, because I think a lot of people have a lot of interest in this.
Sure.
You know, and
A lot of questions.
a lot of questions, and I mean, most people have come here for the purpose of paying respects to a loved one that they know, or for their own family members, and so it's nice to kind of give them an idea of what goes on here, and the different rooms and what you offer.
Correct.
Now, we've talked about different things that you offer as far as for a funeral and for a showing. Are there anything that we might have missed, some options that they have? I know we talked about the video. Oh, I mean, I'm sure that there are times where a person will come in and they want the hair just done just right, or they want it just to make sure that they look.
Absolutely. A
Just
photo
perfect.
is always helpful when putting these things together for folks. I try and tell every family to bring a photo of somebody, if not for a newspaper notice or for our website. Also for a hairdresser, for restorative purposes, so that we can get an idea of what if we didn't know them, what that person looked like in life.
Now, I know you're very good at what you do, but I know you're not a beautician.
No.
So they can bring their favorite beautician in if they like.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a local girl here in Champlain who serves us quite regularly, and we always urge families that if there's somebody in particular that they like, to definitely, if they're comfortable, to have them come in.
Okay. And again, we talked about it's 24/7.
24/7.
So whenever they need you, just pick up the phone and make a phone call.
Absolutely. Pick up the phone.
And actually, where would they call? What's the number?
The number here is 518-298-2351.
And do you guys have a website?
Yes, we do. It's www.mbclarkfuneral.com. clardfuneralhome.com.
Now, on there, do you have a page where you talk about pre-planning and that kind of stuff?
Our website's currently under the end stages of development.
Okay.
Very soon, we will have our homepage with all the photo locations and with information on pre-planning.
Okay, 'cause I know we talked about that earlier, and that has become more and more popular.
Absolutely. And the more information that people have, I think the better idea they get as to how to go about doing things.
Okay. Calvin, you wanted to add something? Calvin brought up a good point. There are many, many small details that you take care of. I can think of the music, the mass cards. So why don't you kind of just kind of go in detail about those little things you don't even think of, the obituary in the paper. I'm sure you guys
Sure.
take care of that.
Sure. In the arrangement process with a family, there are several facets to putting a memorial together. There's everything from planning the write-up for the newspaper, whether it be a short death notice or whether it be an obituary with a nice biography in it. There are things such as getting instructions for the beautician, selecting memorial cards to put out for folks to be able to take. Those verses need to be selected. All those things need to be put together. Register books need to be picked. Of course, casket and vault selections or an urn selection.
Readings. Do you get in touch with the priest?
Yep,
Or,
we'll get in
or
touch.
the clergy, I should probably say.
Yeah, we'll get in touch with clergy. We'll try and arrange a meeting between them and the family, and so that a mass or service may be planned for that individual. There's several things that need to be chosen for that. Readings, music, if somebody's going to speak. There are several little details that need to be put together in just a couple of days.
Yeah, literally in a couple of days. But it is all laid out. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Absolutely, no. What we do is we try and work really closely with families when they come in to let them know the things that they do have to plan before having this service.
Well, I'm sure when you're talking to them, you bring up things they never even thought about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many times. Many times you'll get a thank you from a family for mentioning something that they might have forgotten about if you didn't mention it.
I mean, it's tough enough to think of it when you aren't in the grieving mode.
Correct.
And I can only imagine it's compounded when you are in the grieving mode.
Absolutely. And obviously with experience comes those questions that you ask families that are just second nature questions that they don't necessarily think about at that time.
And then I'm sure you deal with somebody has passed away here, you have a service, but they want to be buried to another part of the state or the country, and you have to plan that
Sure.
transition. So that there's a lot
Absolutely.
that goes on.
There is a lot that goes on, and everybody's situations are different, and every funeral is unique in its own way.
Sure it is. And and as we're talking, I'm thinking about this, your mindset is that, somebody has lived a long life and they just naturally pass on, and then you get them. But there are situations where you go to accidents. There's where you go to situations that aren't real pleasant that you
Correct.
have to deal with.
Where somebody goes really before their time, and
Right.
that's always
But
with
you go to
unexpected
the
things.
scene, though. I mean,
Correct.
and just so people understand that it's just not somebody just being brought
Yeah,
here
no.
to you. There's some situations where you have to be available.
Absolutely, and many times the funeral director, no matter who the funeral home is, will go and respond to scenes like that, accident scenes, deaths at home, certain situations like that where their loved one is being transported by the funeral
And
home.
those are really stressful situations.
Absolutely,
that
for
you're
those
going through.
families, they're going through obviously the worst time of their lives.
Oh my God, yeah, and I'm sure through your mortician training and schooling that there's probably a psychology part of it that you've had to learn.
Sure, I'd say the best piece of advice, and I think a lot of funeral directors would agree, is to just keep calm, keep level-headed, and remember that people are in a stressful time in their lives.
Yeah, yeah. So it's an amazing service what you do for the community, and somebody has to step up and do it, and it takes special people like yourself. And thank you for doing that for this community.
Well, thank you so much. I really, I'm certainly take a lot of pride in my profession, as I know all of my colleagues in our area as well.
Yes, very much so. Well, I'm with Curtis Bingo. He is the current funeral director,
Yeah.
we'll call it that, lives on premise, and Champlain is his home now, and it's great to have him in the community.
It's great to be here.
Oh, absolutely. And Calvin, is there anything else you want to add? Well, this has been another edition of Talkin' Business, but before I go, and we haven't done this show since Christmas, is this show is supported by viewer patrons and business patrons, and this is the way Calvin makes his living. I agree to do this with him because I believe in his mission, and I know it's been a while since I've asked you this, Calvin, but how many thousands are on the internet now?
8,650.
8,650 and counting, and you probably got another 8,650 to go on there. And this is not, he tapes 10 to 12 different events, if not more, a week.
Amazing.
That goes on. This show here will actually be on Hometown Cable Network probably tonight, if not tomorrow.
Great.
Or Plattsburgh.com. It's been a while since I've done the show here, Calvin, so Plattsburgh.com. But if you want to make a donation to Calvin, and I call this Preserving North Country Memories, and this show here for you, Curtis, will become a North Country memory.
Absolutely.
And it will, as the time goes on, it will just carry that much more meaning to you. I know your dad will probably appreciate seeing this too.
Absolutely.
And for your family, and we have generations now that when Calvin taped them, and now it's their kids, and now it's their kids' kids who are seeing this stuff. But if you'd like to send a donation, Calvin would really appreciate it. We're preserving North Country memories, and you know, when we're long gone, and the historians in the future years, to have this at their fingertips. Yeah. We've captured this, and it's just so valuable, and hopefully you can understand what I'm trying to appeal to you here, and if you can send a donation to 1477 Ridge Road, Champlain, New York. Again, it's been a little bit, but the phone number is 298-4663. I remembered that. If you want to give Calvin a call and make a donation, send it by mail, or you go to hometowncablenetwork.com or plattsburgh.com, and you can make a donation on the PayPal account. And if you're a business and want to be highlighted on an edition of Talkin' Business, we're trying to expose local business in the community that people have interest in. Sure. And I mean, people know you're here, so there's some businesses people don't know. I mean, obviously they know you're here, but they have a really strong interest in what you do here. Give Calvin a call and set up a time. We'd be more than happy to go to your place of business and talk for an hour and expose your business to the local community. That's free. And it's free, and that is free. We don't charge for that. Again, it's community service. We enjoy doing this. Again, I'm Joey Trombley, Curtis Bingo, Calvin Castine on the camera. This has been another edition of Talkin' Business. Did you want to add something else?
Thank you very much for coming today.
You're more than, thank you for having us. We appreciate that.